Coca-Cola CEO James Quincy sat frozen as President Trump's words echoed across television screens. We're going to bring it from 25% to 50%. The tariffs. What might have sounded like just another political announcement in Pittsburgh was in fact a potential catastrophe for one of the world's largest beverage companies. For Coca-Cola, which relies heavily on aluminum cans, the news was a shockwave. Aluminum may not seem like a major concern, but it's the backbone of their operations. Billions of cans are produced, filled, and distributed across the U.S. every year. And now, the cost of this critical material was about to double. The U.S. is still one of Coca-Cola's largest markets, and cans are the preferred format for many American soda drinkers. While the company has a global network, the raw material, aluminum, has largely been imported due to a decline in domestic capacity. Canada, Brazil, and the Gulf countries are major suppliers. With the U.S. cracking down on imports, especially from places like Canada, Coca-Cola's supply chain is suddenly at risk. What once seemed like a routine logistics process has become a high-stakes challenge for the company. This isn't Coca-Cola's first encounter with tariffs. When the initial 25% import tax was introduced, it caused a moderate stir. Quincy publicly acknowledged that production costs were rising and warned of possible price increases. The company responded cautiously, raising prices on some 12 packs by about 3–4%, trying to avoid consumer backlash. But the latest jump to 50% isn't a minor adjustment, it's a game-changing blow. As Quincy has reportedly said, it's no longer just a financial inconvenience, it's a crisis. Each cent added to the cost of a can, when scaled to billions of units, means a massive financial hit or a serious consumer price hike. Switching entirely to domestic aluminum sounds logical, but it's far from practical. The U.S. doesn't currently have the infrastructure to meet Coca-Cola's enormous aluminum demand at competitive prices. Expanding domestic production would take years and billions in investment. Imports from Canada might soon face the full 50% tariff, and alternatives like Brazil come with their own uncertainties. Gulf countries are also an option, but logistical hurdles and shipping costs make them less appealing. Everywhere Coca-Cola turns, they're hitting barriers, economic, political, or logistical. Inside the halls of power, conversations have reportedly already begun. Quincy is said to have approached White House officials behind closed doors, expressing concern that these tariffs, while intended to protect U.S. industries, are hurting iconic American companies. According to leaks, he asked for possible exemptions or quota systems. But the Trump administration remains firm. Former advisor Peter Navarro argues that the tariffs are meant to revive domestic manufacturing, and that large corporations must adapt. For Coca-Cola, that adaptation is far from straightforward. Faced with such constraints, Coca-Cola is now weighing two unappealing choices: increase product prices or absorb the loss. The company has already started pulling back spending, marketing budgets have been slashed, sponsorships and R&D efforts are being scaled down. CFO John Murphy admitted that if raw materials cost too much, advertising won't help. Consumers won't accept massive price jumps. In 2023, even a 3% increase brought criticism. A 10–15% hike could cause long-term damage to the brand. But doing nothing is also dangerous. With every can sold at a loss, the company edges closer to a financial cliff. Alternative packaging like plastic or glass isn't the solution either. Plastic raises environmental concerns, and glass, though recyclable, is heavy and fragile, driving up transportation costs. Cans remain central not only to Coca-Cola's U.S. image but also to its practical business model. And even if the company tries to manufacture more cans abroad, it still has to import them into the U.S., putting them back under the same 50% tariff wall. It's a trap, and the exits are narrow and difficult. Customs data reveals Canada is the top aluminum supplier to Coca-Cola, with Brazil following closely. But with U.S.-Canada trade tensions flaring and Brazil also under scrutiny, the reliability of these sources is in doubt. Gulf nations could step in, but again, costs rise dramatically. Everywhere we turn, we hit a wall, one executive reportedly said. It's a period of deep uncertainty. Even Quincy himself has described it as groping through a dark tunnel where supply, production, and pricing are all unknown variables. Despite the turbulence, Coca-Cola has resisted implementing a sudden nationwide price hike. Some local stores have already adjusted prices, but the company is avoiding a blanket policy. Still, absorbing the cost difference on each can isn't sustainable. This is a company that moves billions of units each year. Every penny lost on a can becomes millions in real terms. That's why the leadership is looking at new growth markets in Latin America and Asia Pacific, hoping to offset domestic losses with foreign gains. It's a possible lifeline, but the US market remains the crown jewel. And it's under siege. There's speculation that Coca-Cola could join forces with other food and beverage companies to form a coalition against aggressive trade policies. Agriculture groups, dairy exporters, and now the soft drink industry all have reason to push back. Senators from Midwest states have started to question the wisdom of making an American staple more expensive. After all, for many consumers, grabbing a Coke with their burger is a ritual. Turning it into a luxury could spark backlash that even Trump's base might not accept. Trump, however, shows no sign of relenting. He maintains that reviving the U.S. metals industry is worth the short-term pain. Industry insiders speculate this could be a bargaining tactic, that the real intention is to negotiate down to 30–35%. But until then, Coca-Cola is in wait-and-see mode. Quincy isn't rushing to pass on the costs. He fears damaging the brand more than taking a financial hit in the short term. Yet time is not on their side. If tariffs stay high and no relief comes, the pressure will only intensify. Coca-Cola's situation underscores how trade wars, often viewed through the lens of steel beams and factory jobs, can impact everyday products in surprising ways. A can of Coke might seem trivial, but it plays a massive role in both the U.S. economy and American culture. Now that simple can is caught in a web of geopolitics, economic policy, and supply chain chaos. Whether Coca-Cola can keep it affordable or even available remains one of the clearest signs of how deep and far-reaching the consequences of trade policy can be.